Yo guys, it's JD here again, back for another video, and at last, the new Dragon Ball Super manga chapter is out. Chapter 77, Bardock, the father of Goku. The chapter picks up after the dramatic interruption involving the fight with Granolah, Vegeta, and Goku. Monito, who left us with the revelation that there was one Saiyan who didn't deserve Granolah's vengeance, that Saiyan's name was Bardock, coincidentally the father of the man who stands in front of Granolah, Son Goku. The chapter opens up with an exposition involving the Ceruleans and the Namekians, who have a peaceful relationship. The Namekians farm and harvest crops, and the Ceruleans in exchange trade water as their form of barter. This is also a parallel to the Shigarians, who also displayed the same kind of kindness and trade way back in chapter 69, with Granolah giving water back to Monito. We see Monito, a younger Monito, but physically still looks the same. This is in part due to the long lifespans of the Namekians, but unfortunately, this peace would not last soon. Also, keep in mind, this is 40 years ago, and chapter 71, Granolah mentions a revenge that has been building for 50 years, so we can assume that Granolah is either, somewhere between 5 and 10 in this flashback. Just a heads up. So it's revealed that the Saiyans attacked with the Frieza Force. Bardock, Leek, Tora, and others were dispatched to take care of the planet's inhabitants, including the Namekians, and so a fight ensues. Unfortunately, the Ceruleans are no match for the Saiyans and their Great Ape or Azaru forms. Monito, who survives the initial attack, is entrusted with the Cerulean Dragon Balls. The previous Dragon Clan elder for the Namekians, of which we don't know their name, is then killed along with the rest of the Namekians, little, children and him. Monito is the lone survivor of this Namekian tribe on planet Cereal and runs away. The rest of the Ceruleans are quickly annihilated by the Saiyan group, but luckily a few of them realize that the Great Ape transformation is somehow tied directly to the formation of a full moon. Since this fight takes place around the evening and or near the nighttime, this is a tactical strategy for Saiyan infiltration measures. So, one of the Ceruleans, named Flake, uses all of his ki and power and concentrates the attack. Similarly, just like with Granolah back in chapter 76, this attack destroys the moon, and one of the apes, Leek, is injured trying to prevent the attack from going off. It grazes his face, leaving a scar, the same scar that we see in the Dragon Ball Super Minus manga, as well as Dragon Ball Super Broly. And remember, this is the partner that accompanied Bardock in the Dragon Ball Super Minus and Dragon Ball Super Broly continuity. And so he got this attack, he got this scar from this Cerulean named Flake. I have to say, the art in this chapter involving the Great Ape skirmish is quite good. The Cerulean backdrop, the architecture, the carnage that ensues is quite impressive. This is a very good example of how well Toyotaru can do action scenes. I really want to see this animated. There's actually a cool scene where the Great Apes revert back to their humanoid forms, and the manner in which they do that with the fuzziness, the fuzzy animation lines, I like that. I think that Toyotaru has a lot of creativity when it comes to this, and I think this scene in the manga was done very well. There's a lot of attention to detail by Toyotaru in some of these panels if you look closely enough. There's even a car in one of the Cerulean city scenes early in the chapter, so that's stuff you might not have seen in your first read. So this just shows you that Toyotaru does put some attention to detail in these chapters. So anyways, we transition to Bardock, who is still in his Great Ape form, swinging on a Cerulean tower in a King Kong-like fashion. He spots a lone survivor running, and this survivor is none other than Granolah as a child. Bardock, by the way, seems to be in control of the Great Ape form, similar to Vegeta back in the Saiyan saga. The expressions on his eyes and face, as well as the articulation and the manner in which he moves, seems to suggest control or awareness. Very similar to Vegeta. Anyways, Bardock spots Granolah in the church, and as we've seen countless times, from trailers and PVs and other instances when the flashback was started, we get to see a close-up of his face. And this face, from Bardock's point of view, is full of confusion and surprise. Then, at the same time, he transforms back into his humanoid form because, as I said, the Ceruleans were able to destroy the moon. So this is happening concurrently. So his form does indeed scare Granolah, and so he, blacks out. So Granolah has no recollection of what events happened after this point. And so we get a great shot of Bardock, who is now in his humanoid form. But I did not like the face. I thought the body was drawn well, but the way Bardock's face is drawn, I know what Toitaro was trying to do. He used the Dragon Ball minus face expressions that Toriyama has done, but his facial expressions seem a little off, especially the eyes. He should still remain calm and in a deep thought, because again, this is a calm and collected kind of Goku, right? His facial expressions are like Goku, but in a very calm and collected manner, similar to even Goku Black. So I actually redrew the scene, which was featured in Geekdom 101's video. Check that video if you haven't. It's a great review. But anyways, Bardock is reminded of an event in his past. And the reason for this is many, but in my case, for me, it's similar to the Golden Great Ape Goku scene from GT. Character sparks familiarity that causes a pause or a change in this character. In Goku's case in GT, it was Pan, crying, tears of Goku trying to regain his control over the form, and that kickstarts a series of memories from, End of Z and early parts of GT. In this case, when Muesli, which is the name of Granolah's mother, Muesli kicks in her maternal instincts, her instincts to protect Granolah, she attacks Bardock, and that image of her angered face with her, her fingers pointed out transitions to Gine, who's pointing her fingers out, criticizing Bardock for being so far away from her, during his missions. And so that particular pose that Muesli is in is what sparks that memory, that flashback of Gine and kid or baby Kakarot. So the panels are drawn very similar, and that's what causes it. And I think the transition to humanoid form also allowed that to have a much greater effect. So anyways, we see the flashback with baby Kakarot and Gine. This Kakarot is about a year old, so this definitely takes place before the events of Dragon Ball Super Broly, because in Dragon Ball Super Broly, baby Kakarot has been in the incubator for 3 years at least. So we still don't know how much time has passed between the Planet Serial mission and then the mission that takes place in Dragon Ball Super Minus. But this is very early in Bardock's career, I guess, and maybe we'll find out more as the story unfolds. We do know that a lot of time passes to go from, say, Earth to Planet Serial, or Planet Vegeta to Planet Serial. So a lot of time. I mean, I think Goku and Vegeta, when they were arriving to Granolah's Planet Serial, when they were using the Heeter ship, it took like 21 or 28 days or something like that. So, it's a very long voyage. But anyways, Gine asked Bardock what he should name the child, and we find out that Bardock was the one who named him. We also see Kid Raditz playing with the other Saiyan kids with some alien creature or bug. The expression on Kid Raditz, which is an important panel I might add, shows that he's probably still pure of heart and not the savage we see him as due to the influence of Vegeta, Nappa, and the rest of the elite Saiyan culture. This is a very different Raditz. The Raditz, this Raditz is vastly different from Raditz from the Saiyan saga. And this is important because this implies that Gine and Bardock's influence could have had a greater effect had they been alive to continue to raise Raditz. And possibly if Raditz hadn't been partnered with Vegeta, things could have been different. Raditz could have been another Goku. I'm going to talk about the nature versus nurture stuff a little bit later in the review. So we cut back to Bardock and Granolah's mom, Muesli, who, like I said, attacks Bardock, destroying his left shoulder armor and grazing his arm, wounding him. Bardock actually has really interesting looks, and these indicate a instinctive feeling to do something about this young family that this young group of survivors that he's found. So Leek finds Bardock, because we're coming at the end of the mission, and tells him that Frieza's going to show up. And so Bardock says that he will check for more survivors, and tells Leek and the rest of the Saiyans, Tora and the other dude, to pack their stuff and go, and he'll catch up with them. And he's doing this in a clever way because he doesn't want to tell Leek that he's literally standing in front of survivors. So he tricks Leek, and then they find Monaito due to his scouter. Monaito had ran away to his little Namekian house, and he actually hid the Dragon Balls. But before he could do anything further, Bardock, thanks to his scouter, was able to pick up on Monaito's location, and accompanying him is Muesli and Granolah, who's still knocked out. So Monaito attacks Bardock, but he easily counters, and like I said, Bardock brings Granolah and Muesli to stay with him, and he tells them to keep on the low because, again, Frieza is arriving. Monaito asks why Bardock is doing this, to which he responds, and I quote, "I just felt like it. This may not seem important or deep. However, it reminds us that Bardock is just acting. He's just doing this. This is reflexive. This is instinctive. This isn't something built on some set of codes or morals or ethics or anything that he's learned from an idealistic point of view, to quote from Jordan. This is, because it feels right. And so this is called instinct or instinctual compassion. A scientific term would be biological altruism. And this greatly relates to both West and Eastern philosophy because it overlaps because of, like I mentioned before in reviews, in Buddhism, you have universal compassion mantra, right? And then in Taoism, you also have universal compassion for all life as well. So there's a lot of overlap between the sciences and philosophy concerning this. So with that said, it's science time. So, quote, "Our human compassion binds us to the one, to the other, not in pity or patronizingly, but as human beings who have learned how to turn our common suffering into hope for the future." This was a quote by Nelson Mandela. Really like this guy. Very important person. But I bring that quote up to show that, again, there's been a lot of world leaders, a lot of politicians, a lot of scientists, a lot of philosophers, humanists, who have looked and analyzed the human condition, human nature. There's been a lot of research into the following, which I'm going to share. So, the idea that kindness could be inherited. This is something that Saiyan Scholar raised in one of his polls. Check out his video. He does good videos. And a few other Dragon Ball YouTubers have raised as well. The problem with Bardock being a kind Saiyan, which he's not. Again, the only reason why he's even soft remotely is due to Guinea's influence. But the idea that kindness or a sense of goodness can be passed on a genetic level, turns out there is scientific basis for it. A guy by the name of William D. Hamilton postulated the existence of genes underlying altruism, or kindness, under the rubric of inclusive fitness theory about a half century ago. I'll share the research and the links or in the description box in this video if you're curious. Genes, in case you haven't taken a science class or biology or genetics class, genes are sequences in macromolecules called nucleotides. They're units of heredity. They're the building blocks and the chemical blueprint for how everything in your body, down to the cellular level, to the entire organism system, all of that biophysical chemical functions are due to the unique set of expressions found in the DNA. The totality of all the DNA in an organism is called a genome, and the genotype is the sum of all the DNA molecules in the system. So the physical manifestation of the genome is the phenotype. The phenotype, again, is like the physical characteristics, the hair color, your eyes, your body size, all that stuff is physical, and that's encoded by genes on a genomic level. There's actually a set of genes that have been targeted by researchers, of which are candidates for what we call the genes for altruism. There is OXTR, CD38, COMT, which is catecholamine, DRD4, which is the dopamine receptor D4, DRD5, dopamine receptor D5, IGF2, which is the insulin-like growth factor 2, which plays a role in kindness and feelings of reciprocity. And then there's GABA, which is GABA beta 2. These all have been found to be candidate genes for altruism. Again, I'll share the research below. The chemical basis involving the complex feedback chain involving the following hormones, which again are chemicals secreted from the endocrine system. And this endocrine system is a system of glands, right? So your brain has a set of glands, if you will, right? So you have the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. You have a variety of other glands. Point is, they are a organ, if you will, that secretes a chemical, right? And so hormones travel through blood and cell channels, and then you have neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers that travel through the nerve tracts, right? So the nerves that run through your central and peripheral nervous system, right? Bundles of axons. These manifest through the use of sodium potassium ion channels. So on your screen, you see the following scientific articles that I've shared that show that there is a scientific basis in area of research concerning the idea of there being genes for altruism or kindness. Again, this is research shared by someone by the name of Datcher Kettner, who is the director of the Berkeley Social Interaction Laboratory. They investigate and have done research into the following manners in which you can reconcile Darwinian evolution, descent with modification or natural selection, with the peculiar nature of altruism that is as it's found in the human condition. So why am I asking this? Why am I sharing all of this stuff? The reason I added all this is to rebuttal some of the points and questions raised on the social media platforms as well as the Dragon Ball YouTuber community. A lot of people don't like the idea or accept the idea that you can inherit kindness, that it's possible that you are genetically predispositioned to behave in a certain way. Well, realistically speaking, there is a basis for that. However, it's only one side of the coin. But I just wanted to share that stuff because I thought it was interesting enough to suggest to this audience that again there is a genetic basis for how you behave, good or bad. But it's not the only influence, and there's a reason for that. While it stands to reason that Goku's kindness and behavioral disposition was in part due to the genes and experiences gained from Gine and Bardock, in particular Gine because of the S cells. S cells, if you remember, are from the Dragon Ball Super minus Q&A a while back. S cells are the cells that pacify or domesticate a Saiyan. A large quantity of them, as well as a high battle power, allows Saiyans to become and channel to become Super Saiyans. The point is, Gine and Bardock had them due to being the pure Saiyans as described by the Dragon Ball Super director Nagamine when we talk about the fall of the Saiyans and the Saiyans who kind of inherit Yamoshi's will and his goodwill, his good and kind spirit. All that stuff represents the pure Saiyans, what the Saiyans should be, similar to the Universe 6 Saiyans, right? Gine and Bardock represent those kinds of Saiyans. And actually, another way of looking at this is if, by analogy, if you recall the speech made by Gawasu when he was with Zamasu going into the future to look at the barbarians, the dinosaur cavemen people. Remember, they fast forward like 1,000 years into the future, and we saw tribes form. We saw complex social relationships. We saw them using tools and learning how to harness fire and things like that, right? Bardock and Gine kind of represent members of the Saiyan species that are slowly becoming pacified, naturally. And this is in part due to the fact that there is, genes and experiences from Yamoshi from that era that, have funneled through the Saiyan gene pool, if you will, right? And so when we talk about the nature versus nurture debate, the point is that not all genes, guarantee that you're going to behave a certain way. They just give you the starting package. You get a head start, if you will. But it's not the only way to win a race, and you're not guaranteed to win a race at life when it comes to having a particular kind of genetic set, right? The environment plays a role. Goku had Grandpa Gohan in his life, and due to Grandpa Gohan's martial arts experience, which, as I mentioned before, is based off Eastern philosophy, all the martial arts that you see in the Dragon Ball world on Earth are based on Buddhism and Taoism, Shintoism, and the various other Japanese and Chinese cultural beliefs. So Goku was exposed to a quiet and tranquil life, and that didn't involve the complexities of society and rituals and all those manners. So he inherited just a baseline instinctual compassion, which is the biological altruism that I mentioned from his parents. However, the environment that he was in reinforced them. Martial arts is again about self-defense, and Eastern tradition stresses, some manners and universal compassion. So Son Goku would also meet he would meet other compassionate people like Bulma, the OG gang in Dragon Ball. In the path that Goku has, walked down since early parts of Dragon Ball, this path has kept him on the route of goodness and building upon this foundation. So it's both and perfectly compatible. And so this is actually why Raditz did not end up like Goku. He ended up a cold and classic, barbarian Saiyan. And that's because he wasn't in a warm and welcoming environment like Goku was. And this is, again, to show you and illustrate that just because you have a genetic predisposition towards things doesn't mean you will guarantee to act that way. Experiences, the people you meet in life, all that stuff has a just as much of an important effect, if not greater, than just your genetic template. So, Raditz, while he had the genetic predisposition, he did not have the experiences and the positive reinforcement from an environment to make sure those genes manifest in a certain way. So that's why Toyotaro and Toriyama drew Raditz in the flashback, playing with the little Saiyan kids, because it was to show like what could have been, essentially. And so with that said, we return back to Bardock, who, like I said, he has a scouter, he detects the Heeters, and it is fully revealed that they are the brains behind this attack. All of this was for the purpose of reorganizing and reshaping the planets, just like the Frost and Frieza Force business does. However, we get a lot of insight into their characters and how they feel about Frieza. They do want to take over his army, and they want to go through with it with intel, brains, and monetary influence. They are, like I mentioned in my Heeter video, like the Mafia. And I believe that this train of thought, coupled with what we've been told from Granola's perspective in the earlier portions of this arc, will foreshadow what kind of wishes, yes, that's right, wishes, that they will make. One will probably be power-based, to power up gas in some way, either in the exact same way as Granolah, or maybe using OG-73. And then one will be knowledge-based to somehow take control over the universe, take control over Frieza's army, etc., etc. The manner of which we don't know yet. So this exchange is then heard by Bardock, and he even questions the plotting of the Heeters. He knows how dangerous these people are. And so that's why it's really interesting to see what he does with this information, which we unfortunately don't see happen in this chapter. Unfortunately, Kid Granolah wakes up and sees the Bardock Saiyan tail, and so he screams in horror, which alerts the Heeters. And this is because, again, he still remembers the last thing he saw was a giant great ape staring down at his mother and him. So, of course, he has every right to still be fearful of the Saiyans. So, the Heeters catch on to this sound. They investigate and they find Bardock. Bardock, schemes up an idea where he takes Monito's cloak and puts it on. It's a really cool panel. I like Bardock wearing a cloak. I think it's really cool. So they come up with a plan. The Heeters see the survivors, and Bardock pretends that he's going to finish them off. However, he hesitates, and he tells Alec that the Namekian's very interesting because he has the ability to heal things, because he previously healed Bardock's arm. And so it wouldn't be worth killing him if he has other abilities or possibly information that could be gleanful for the Frieza Force. So Alec's like, sure, but then he pulls out a freaking gun. That's right, a freaking gun. It's not the same Frieza Force blaster or the ornaments that we've seen before in Dragon Ball. It's literally like, it looks like a Luger pistol, like something out of the 1920s or something. So he pulls that out and straight up takes out Muesli, Granolah's mom. So that's right, the Heeters, like I predicted, were the ones that killed Granolah's mom. I thought it was Gas, but it ended up being Alec. But the point is, the Heeters are the ones responsible for Granolah's mother dying, which is gonna tick him off. And so, Bardock, witnessing this, lashes out, and you can see the animalistic rage building up. Even Gas notices and projects a key barrier to save the Heeters from Bardock's shockwave, and this was a diversion to allow Bardock to escape. Alec is bothered by the Saiyans seemingly betraying him, and as a result, Frieza, so this could throw a wrench in their plans. And so you don't want to piss off Frieza. So, having a renegade Saiyan and survivor running around, it could affect Frieza and, the Heeter's success with this whole, business that they're doing. And so, Gas is tasked with wiping them out. And this part of the flashback ends. And so we cut back to the present and we see Alec, who has found the first Dragon Ball. Gas and Alec talk about, his bad memories, which is what was alluded to back in chapter 72. And so, now we know that there was an altercation between Bardock and Gas, but this was not shown yet. So, the chapter ends with Mackie telling the pilots to hurry to the second Dragon Ball location. So, we're rapidly approaching the Heeter climax. Yes, I think that is going to be the climax of the year, and we're going to get to that wish. But overall, I think the chapter was pretty good. I personally enjoyed chapter 76 more, mainly for the narrative and the character moments and portrayal of all the key players. I feel like Bardock's inclusion so far feels a little forced. Using Bardock's instinctual compassion to trigger another Goku moment, right? By Goku moment or Goku effect, I mean like using the character of Goku, like the way he is, to change people, change villains, get them to change their ways and become good guys, like we're about to see probably with Granolah. It seems very plot contrived, and unnecessary story padding that right now I don't think it's going to actually change Granolah's character at this point in the arc. I think Granolah is going to eventually turn over a new leaf, but I still think he has every right to feel the way he does, because we do know Saiyans destroyed his people. I mean, Bardock is still a killer. His squad, Leak, Tora, and others continue to kill the Cerealians and the Namekians, and Granolah and the Cerealians were a witness to that. So just because one Saiyan or two Saiyans saved him shouldn't take away from that. And because the guy is so locked in on revenge, I just don't foresee him just letting that go yet. And like you've seen in other material, in Dragon Ball Minus, Bardock was, infiltrating like another planet with like Yakon looking aliens. It's where that, panel of him crouching, eating the remains of like some kind of frog creature. Like, I'm sure those are like peaceful alien forms. And, they were killed by him. He's eating them, literally. So, I mean, he's still a savage warrior. He's still like a Saiyan. He just has soft edges thanks to the influence of Guinea. His life, or referring back to Muesli and Granolah, that the reason why that memory sparked was, again, because Guinea and baby Kakra were reminded thanks to the way Muesli and Granolah were presented, the way they were drawn in the panel. And this is in part due to the special romantic relationship that we know Guinea had with Bardock, thanks to Toriyama. As far as my predictions, I think the flashback with Bardock will resume next chapter for 78. I don't know how Bardock escapes. Maybe the Dragon Balls are used, of which we see Monaito hide them. And we know that Monaito only had one at the time, and one was lost in like a lake. So perhaps the Dragon Balls were used to somehow have Bardock teleport off the planet. Maybe his pod was destroyed. Maybe the Heeters are just, preventing him from escaping after he defeats Gas. Maybe Frieza shows up and he has to do something quick. So I think the Dragon Balls will be used. I definitely think I fully expect Gas versus Bardock. They obviously want to milk the character, which isn't a bad thing. He's a popular character, so we're going to see him in action. I think it'll be really cool, especially if he's wearing his cloak. We're also going to get a lot of Gas combat, which we need to see before the wish is made. We need to know how strong he really is, how he stands to characters like Frieza, Bardock, and ultimately Goku, Vegeta, and Granolah. I also hope we see Frieza next chapter, since we know he's arriving. It'd be really cool to see Frieza finally, especially, since the events, with the English voice actor passing away. Very unfortunate set of news that we've had this week. I fully expect Granolah to, again, not turn into an ally yet. I expect him to continue his battle with Vegeta and ultimately lose, since I kind of agree with Jordan Lee. I think that Vegeta will let go of his Saiyan guilt, in part thanks to Bardock's story, and so he'll probably master UE to defeat Granolah, Ultra Ego. Then I expect the Heeters to get the Dragon Balls, and then the chapter will probably end with the sky going dark. However, it's also possible that the sky will go dark, and it might go dark like multiple times. But unfortunately, if Granolah is fighting Goku and Vegeta, they won't be able to investigate, and so the only one that might be able to pick up on it is Monaito. But because I don't think Granolah really wants to hear anything from Monaito, since Monaito kept that secret away from him, the true demise of his mother, I really think it's just going to continue this fight for at least another chapter, and so Goku and Vegeta won't be able to do anything about Heeters making a wish. And like I said, they're going to make 2 wishes probably, one power-based and one knowledge-based. But overall, I like the chapter. I really like DragonBallSuper Bardock, and I hope we see more. I just feel like the flashback could have been condensed into one chapter, including Bardock vs. Gas, but they do want to, I think they're just trying to time it to where the climax happens in December and January. That happens a lot in shonen mangas where they have a big chapter for the December January V jump. You know, we saw it before. I think in 2011 the climax chapter for Naruto Shippuden was when Sage Mode Naruto showed up to fight Pain. That was a big chapter. So they save big moments for winter, you know, Christmas time. And then as far as the present timeline with Goku hearing about Bardock, again, it's not forced. Like Goku even says, like, I don't really know much about this guy because he was raised by Grandpa Gohan, which tells us the readers that, again, Grandpa Gohan had a larger influence than just his genetics. A lot of people have a problem with Vegeta's dialogue about him saying that, you know, it seems his softness or whatever runs in the family. I don't have a problem with that because, again, Vegeta doesn't know everything about Kakarot. He doesn't know everything about Grandpa Gohan. He just knows that he's had a domesticated Earthling life. But we've seen the effect happen to Vegeta, right? Vegeta had, you know who Vegeta's special relationship is? That's similar to Gine. It's Bulma. Like Bulma is Bardock. Bulma is Vegeta's Gine, and so we've seen the effect that women have on these Saiyans, and they pacify them. And we know, Vegeta and all of them were able to become Super Saiyans in part thanks to their S cells. So this just shows us that, again, the Earthling culture, the peacefulness, the environment plays just as much of a larger role, if not greater, than the genetics that they are, inheriting. And now as for whether Bardock will come back, or as for whether Kakarot or Goku will become more interested in his father, it's possible. I think they're just going to use the Whis staff to see, Bardock's entire life, because you can, the angels can show entire events in Dragon Ball since they have like omniscience. So we might see that, right? Maybe Vegeta might be curious about, his. I don't think he'll be curious about his father, but maybe Vegeta might want to know more about Bardock because he's invested his whole life in defeating Kakarot. So, but overall, it wasn't a bad chapter. I personally like 76 more, but it had a lot of deep themes in the chapter, and that's why I talked about the scientific stuff in this chapter. So, I think I'm still excited. I just don't want the Heeter wish to be pushed back, but if they're pushing it back, that means it's going to be a big wish. I really think we're going to get the worst wish in history. But with that said, that ends the video. If you're enjoying this content, please like and share the video. I am working on exclusive art and animations for upcoming videos, and really cool art. So anything helps. But anyways, I'll see you guys later, guys. Bye, guys. See ya.